Miss Diki Choyang, Honorable Kalon of Tibetan Government in Exile, Dharamshala, Mr. Dilip Mehta, who is the former ambassador, distinguished delegates coming from all over the world, distinguished personalities of the Tibetan administration, and then also the different frontal organization chiefs and their office bearers, and my dear friends. After 2 days of hectic deliberations on a very important issue, international issue, we have now come to a conclusion today. This is a concluding session. We are running half an hour behind. It doesn't matter since this is the concluding session. I have been, in fact, I have to only master the master ceremony of this function, but I have been given some time, about 10 minutes, to say a few words today. So I would like to first introduce that I'm from Arunachal Pradesh, the northeast corner of the India, which is still claimed by the China. That is the part of the China. And for the people from the Arunachal Pradesh, citizens from the Arunachal Pradesh, have not been given a regular visa by China. They have given a staple visa to us, on which we have vehemently opposed, rejected their staple visa, so much so that one of our officers, we have the elite group of the bureaucracy is known as IAS and IFS and IPS. One of our officers, originally from Arunachal Pradesh, was under training, along with the other groups from the officers from all over the country. And they had, after they had had a refreshers course for about 3 months. After that, they had to go to visit China. China has given a visa to everyone except our officer, who originates from Arunachal Pradesh. And the government of India has taken a very strong stand on that. They have cancelled the entire program to China of the visiting of that bureaucracy from India. So I congratulate and thank the government of India taking a very strong stand on that issue. And as far as the Arunachal Pradesh is concerned, no matter whatever the China may say, it's an absolutely integral part of the India, and they can't. That is a very wild dream that if the China is having that, they may have a different motives behind that. So therefore, the Tibet issue is absolutely connected with us. And before the Tibet, before 1959, there had been a lot of our people have gone and taken a higher education from Tibet also, because western part of Arunachal is all Buddhist. And even my great-grandfather had an education from Tibet. And so I feel lucky that I'm also been connected with the Tibet movement now. We never expected that this would happen, and this would also happen, but it's part of the world phenomena. Friends, as far as the Tibet movement is concerned, I would take back little, in the 70s, because today I'm very happy, because I have been seeing this evolution of the Tibetan movement in India. Because in 1997, when I was just 27 years old, I got elected to the Parliament of India. Then as a Buddhist, along with me, a Buddhist friend, MP from Sikkim, we came to pay our respect, obedience, and take an audience from His Holiness Dalai Lama in 1977. And you will all know that in 1977, there was a big political upheaval. For the first time, Congress, after rule about 30, 40 years, have been thrown out, and non-Congress government has come in India. So it was a new thing, new approach, new acquaintance as far as the Tibet government in exile was concerned to do it. So it was on that, or during that visit, the Kashak, we had a discussion in the evening. We planned it how His Holiness would come and meet the people, leaders of the new leaders in New Delhi. Monsoon session, we have suggested accordingly. Everything was planned by the Delhi office. That time Mr. Sikyong Dr was there. Everything was done. And that is how, and then in the second year, or it is subject to your records, the Tibetan, the uprising movement of 10th March will find out here whether it's 77 or 78. I was invited to address that uprising day rally at Delhi. I'll tell you today, the Tibetan people have brought one Jonga, army, this auction vehicle, Jonga. And we were absolutely, just in front of the Chinese embassy we stood. Me as a member of parliament, another Mr. Bhushan, Sasi Bhushan from Delhi. Both of us were there. Friends, why I'm referring is that, I made and in my speech, I had then made a statement that because that year, Ayatollah Khomeini, the religious leader of Iran, was in exile for 14 years. And that was the year on which the Shah of Iran was thrown out and he came back. So I mentioned that if the Shah of Iran could come back after 14 years of the exile, I have no doubt in my mind that His Holiness will one day go back to the Tibet because he's on exile in our country and it will go back. Now my only feeling is, my commitment is that I would like to see in his lifetime, at least in my lifetime and in His Holiness' my lifetime, that His Holiness goes back to Tibet honorably and Tibet gets a freedom. This is where I feel very strongly on that. Friends, regarding Tibet issue, we are meeting at a very critical situations. This self-immolation has taken place. That is the ultimate resort. The Tibetan people have been pushed to the wall, and they have no alternative but than to resort there. Because any other activities, they have been harassed, they have been, so people have resorted to their self-immolations. Now, why I'm saying this important is that all the international, the friends, sympathizers, the well-wishers, the supporters have now gathered here. And the Honorable Sikyong Dr Sangay has called for a Tibet year of 2013. Now he has called it. And who's responsible for this? It is our responsibility, those who are gathered here today. If we have to make it 2013 as a year of Tibet, then from here today, after completion, after dispersing from today, from day one also, every one of us must act immediately. Then only this will happen. And international pressure is absolutely required. And changing situation, you never know. You would recollect that, USSR was one of in the Eastern Bloc was the most powerful country. And it happened in the USSR, disintegrated. So, and one thing, whenever two things we feel that if some leaders in the past has accepted or signed it, history can be repeated, history can be renewed, history can be remade. This is the part of the natural cycle. Even if somebody has said that Tibet was a part of China, what does it matter? If tomorrow the people uprise, China has no option but to go back, the new history is written. So we have to look at the new history, not to repeat that old one. This is not lament on what had happened and what had said, other things. We'll have to, they look forward. So there, what I wanted is, friends coming from here, those who have gathered here, met us here, it's very good. Because as far as the Tibet is concerned, now at the moment, I don't understand why the world leaders are not coming up. For that matter, our country's leaders are also not coming up. We're very, very typical. I find that, because when His Holiness came here, all the opposition leaders have been speaking for Tibet. And God willing, in 1977, they have been given power to rule the country. And then they had not changed it. This is not correct. This double standard of our leaders is not correct. I can say it because I'm an Indian, I'm a citizen of India, so I can blame them also. I would like that tomorrow, even today also, like some of the friends from the other political parties have started supporting. Tomorrow when we go and lobby, they may start supporting us also. We must ensure one thing with them whenever we lobby it also. When tomorrow they come to the power, they should not change the program. They should not change their stand. But they said that, no, this is the historical standing, this was the standing foreign policy of the government of our government. Policies can be changed. You have been you have been elected, you have been placed in that place to ensure if the policy is favorable for you, it's okay, otherwise you can change it. The international policies can also be done, there's nothing. So I find that, we will also, from our side, will pressurize whatever is possible. And because what I'm saying is that why our leaders today, they can come up openly is, His Holiness, for that matter, the CTA has now, Central Tibetan Administration has not accepted the middle path. So where is the crisis of constitution here? Any country, when we talk about, we also talk about our, these underground people, extremist people. Our leaders, they say, no, you are invited to discuss within the framework of Indian constitutions. So here, the Tibetan leaders are saying that we would like to discuss within the framework of the Chinese Republic constitutions. So where is the constitution crisis? I'm very correct. His Holiness yesterday, when he was addressing us, he said it can be done if they want. This is a question of willing. So there are two ways. Either master has to have a will, or master has to be pressurized to, accept the will. So that pressurization work is ours. Those who have gathered here for the last 2-3 days deliberation, we have done it. This is because number one thing, they have not done it. China is not agreeing to accept it. So we have to pressurize them. That can be through our governments, through our respective governments, through our respective parliamentarians. And everybody, this is how we should be very active, and we should do this. Friends, therefore, and it has been said, I always feel that the non-violence, the path of non-violence, which has been adopted by His Holiness, which we are all following it, we have all been advised also, it's very good, because when we see history, anything you achieve through the non-violence is everlasting. Anything you achieve through violence has a reaction all the time. So therefore, this non-violence, acceptance of non-violence, I'm sure, with so much of this non-violence have started by our religious leader, the Buddha Dev, which His Holiness, as the first disciple of the religion, is carrying on, which was accepted. The histories are there. Our country has also adopted the same line, which was followed in, I think, in the United States, everywhere, and then down south in the South Africa, but the Nelson Mandela. So these are before us. So I'm very sure, I'm very confident that, day is not very far. The prayers, the perseverance, the compassion which His Holiness is practicing, that itself, the nature will compel China to one day that, you will have to leave this holy land and go back to your own area. This is my strong feeling. I'm very happy I have been given this opportunity to say a few words. I will only request once again that we should not only gather here, which is very, very important. As I said, the special international for this conference which have taken place, you can see the timing of this also, the importance of this conference. And I'm sure they're all friends coming all over the world will take as a challenge in their heart and become active so that, we have already decided that there will be the Asian rally in New Delhi, and our parliamentarians, one thing I would like to also say that, when we approach the parliament members, when we approach them, that please pass a resolution in the House or please move it, there we should not always insist on the passing the resolutions. It's not always anything if it gets introduced in the parliament. That itself is the first achievement. Let it not be discussed also. Let it not be accepted also. At least 10 members or 5 members or 1 member of parliament should write a letter to the speaker that I would like to raise the issue of Tibet, which has not been done till date. We would like that somebody should write a letter to the speaker saying that we would like to raise it. So I would like to say that when we talked about the raising and passing the resolutions on Tibet issue in the parliament, we should not always think that, there will be discussion on that issue. No. Let it go step by step. Let them, at least the members of parliament, those who are sympathizers, those who are supporters, let them write first to the speaker that I would like to raise this issue. Please include this agenda of the issue raising of Tibet on this issue. So this is how one clarification. Thank you very much. And wishing all of you that, when you are going back home, with the blessings of the God, with the blessings of His Holiness Dalai Lama here, we all reach home safely. And we do, from the day one, all our activities to achieve the Tibet year of 2010. Thank you, Ms. Jai Hind. Now, second is I'll request Madam Kalon Diki Soyang, Department of Information and International Relations, CTA, to address.
You have all been working very hard these past 2 days. Some of you are used to these kind of gatherings, and some of you are new, and I hear that some of you are quite overwhelmed by the range of ideas. I want to reiterate that the purpose of gatherings such as this one is not only to create an action plan like the one you just discussed this morning, but I think it's also, the importance is also to feel part of an international community of people who care deeply about justice, truth, and the future of the Tibetan people and Tibet. I commend your efforts and also the efforts of the participant, but also the drafting committee, which within a very short period of time had to come up with a very pithy and accurate document, which I think they've done successfully. So I thank all the members of the drafting committee. I want to draw your attention to a few elements in the action plan, namely that all the actions that have been adopted end in 2013, at the end of 2013. Being so, the follow-up and the evaluation of the campaigns undertaken will require a process, not necessarily another gathering of this nature, but there needs to be some planning, I think, as to how you will follow up at the end of 2013. The action plan, while it has generated ideas for multilateral action, does not preclude a national undertaking that reflect the environment that each one of you comes from. In order to follow up well and be part of the follow-up and the assessment the process of evaluating the campaigns that will be undertaken, I would like to encourage all of you to join the International Tibet Network. As you saw, all the workshops that took place over the last 2 days have been planned and facilitated by the network. The network provides resources, advice, and small grants for campaigns and capacity building, as well as regional meetings that take place every year, year and a half. It's an important mechanism for follow-up in between regional and global meetings. It's not a top-down network that will give you orders. It's at your discretion which campaign you wish to adopt locally. Joining the network is a symbolic gesture of solidarity. It's a demonstration of your commitment to the international movement for Tibet. That being said, I also want to reiterate as a representative of the Tibetan administration that in the spirit of cooperation with Tibet Support Group that has been repeatedly stated by both Sikyong and myself, we will also continue to encourage Tibetan associations worldwide to join the network as a step towards closer, integrated, working, and coordinated relationship with the global Tibetan movement. I also want to take this opportunity to say that in order to implement these campaigns, you will have to deal with some key individuals. And amongst these key individuals are our representatives of the administration throughout the world. As I stated in my opening speech, these representatives are all present today, and it's a deliberate effort on our part. They play a pivotal role in the Tibetan people's interface with the international community. Over the last few days, we've done away with normal protocol, and all the representatives have mingled very informally with the participants. For those of you who are new to our movement, I want to say a few words about these representatives. While the title that is conferred upon them right now is representative, the nature of their work is really that of an ambassador. Ambassador for His Holiness the Dalai Lama, ambassador for the Tibetan administration. They are all, without exception, accomplished individuals with outstanding track record of community service, unwavering commitment to the Tibetan cause, and thorough understanding of the challenges faced by the Tibetan people. They are a critical link between you and the Tibetan people and its governance structure, that is the Tibetan administration. They shoulder a tremendous responsibility with limited resources. So today I want to take this opportunity to introduce them to you in an order of seating arrangements. I want to salute them. I want to acknowledge also their past and ongoing contribution to our community. So if you'll allow me now, in the order of the seating arrangement, I would like to introduce each one of them to you. I would request that you hold your applause until the introductions are completed. And I would also request the representative to please stand as I name you and turn towards the audience so they can see you. So to begin with, Mr. Lobsang Sangay, who is in New York. Thank you. Mr. Temba Tsering in Delhi. Mr. Ngudrup Dorji in Brussels, Belgium. Mr. Mingyu Doji in Pretoria, South Africa. Mr. Ngawa Rabge in Moscow, Russia. Mr. Lakpa Tsoko in Tokyo, Japan. Mr. Thupten Samdup in London, UK. Mr. Tseten Samdup in Geneva, Switzerland. Special Representative to Europe for His Holiness, Mr. Kesan Gelsen. Mr. Sonam Dakpo in Australia. Mr. Tsewang Putsok in New York. Mr. Tsering Tundup in Paris. And unfortunately, we're missing our representative in Taiwan, Mr. Dawat Tsering, who asked to be excused, but applaud him in his absence. So as you return to your respective countries, I want to reiterate some of the points that I made in my opening statement. I hope that when you return, you will think about sustainability. How do you ensure the continuity of your work? If something happened to you tomorrow, who will carry on? Difficult question, but a question that is very important. Effectiveness, are you reaching out to the key target groups? Are you using the best channels to reach out to these target groups? And efficiency, are you making the best use of available resources? Can we build coalition with natural partners like Tibetan communities and other NGOs? I would also, because we have amongst us several members of the Chinese community, I would like to say a few words in Mandarin, followed by a statement by Professor Yang Jianli on behalf of the Chinese participants. So if you'll please allow me. 借此的机会，我想用中文说几句话。很高兴所有的华人代表能参加本次会。西藏目前紧张的局势关系到中国政府所实施的错误政策。75位藏人为了向中国政府和民众表达西藏境内的困难，而献出了宝贵的生命。诸如达赖喇嘛尊者和藏人所希望的，像在座各位具有独立思考和爱好正义的华人朋友们，希望你们把西藏境内的真实情况转达给广大的华人兄弟姐妹。西藏问题的解决，最终将共同治愈汉人和藏人。谢谢。Professor.
Thank you. Yeah. Dear brothers and sisters, nearly 80 Tibetans have set themselves on fire in the past 3 years for the cause of their people's freedom. This month alone, the world bore witness to 15 more tragic and heroic self-immolations. We all have the strong sense that they will not stop. Even as I speak, there may be more. Have overwhelmed me with grief. As Chinese, we stand before you shamed, embarrassed, and humbled, shamed by the unspeakable suffering that the Chinese government has systematically inflicted upon the people of Tibet. Embarrassed by the general apathy of the Chinese general public, embarrassed, humbled, because we have been brought to our knees by the weight of our grief, the force of our anger, and the unbearable feelings of helplessness in the face of such powerful evil. But we draw strength and inspiration from you, my dear Tibetan brothers and sisters. You inspire us through your endurance, despite these grievous assaults on your language, your culture, your religion, your land, your spirit, and even your lives. We draw strength and inspiration from good people like you, the participants of this conference. Your unwavering support has kept the issue of Tibet alive and support network snowballing. And we draw strength and inspiration from the words of His Holiness the Dalai Lama. Tragedy should be utilized as a source of strength, no matter what sort of difficulties, how painful the experience is. If we lose our hope, that's our real disaster. Yes, we must draw hope from the suffering frames of the martyrdom. We must not lose hope. But hope alone cannot defeat this evil. We must have a tool more powerful than evil. His Holiness tells us, in our struggle for freedom, truth is the only weapon we possess. My dear brothers and sisters, the time has come for us to unite for a campaign of truth. No evil, no matter how strong, can withstand the force of truth. Wherever the evil lurks, we must blind it with the light of the truth. Wherever the conscience sleeps, we must awaken it with the sound of truth. Through the burning flames from Tibet, we must see the truth. These martyrs sacrificed their lives in the most painful way. They did it in the protest against Chinese rule. This rule has led to the killings of 1 million Tibetans, the toppling of thousands of temples, the diluting and destroying the Tibetan language and culture, irreversible damage of the natural environment in Tibet, and the more than 5-decade-long exile of His Holiness the Dalai Lama. Each time when tensions escalate, instead of showing concern and trying to address root causes, the Chinese regime responds with increasing force and oppression. The increased clampdown on the Tibetans, especially the monks and the nuns, stepped up cultural genocide and ever-growing ethnic oppression have made the situation in Tibet unbearable to the Tibetans. Let's listen to the flames. Yes, there are voices in the flames. Free Tibet. Let the Dalai Lama return home. When we hear the voices, our conscience permits us nothing but to act as their transmitters and amplifiers, to awaken more people's conscience, to let more people know the truth about these tragedies, and to allow more people to experience these Tibetans' despair and desire to be reborn in the flames. We must press the Western government to speak the truth. The grassroots movement is very important, but it alone is not enough. The Chinese government generally does not respond if the world leaders remain silent, because the only language it can understand is that of power. It does not understand in democracies, power is ultimately with the people. So we must take advantage of our democratic mechanisms to press our government to represent our will in regard to the issue of Tibet. We must not let our government base their policies on the wrong assumption that CCP rule is permanent. Power has passed to a new generation of leadership in China. It is the nature of tyrannical regimes that they grow weaker and less coherent with each successive generation. We already see the cracks weaken the CCP. We must exploit these cracks by waving the flag of truth in their faces at every turn. The question of Tibet is both a political issue and a moral one. All of humanity is challenged. Every world leader must take this test. Just like any test, one either passes it or fails it. To our great dismay, many world leaders have so far either refused to take the test or failed it. Too many of them just look the other way while our Tibetan brothers and sisters were crying in flames. We should not let our government continue to fail the test politically or morally. We must insist today silence is no longer an option. We must keep before us the words of Martin Luther King. In the end, we will remember not the words of our enemies, but the silence of our friends. We must challenge the silence of our governments at every turn and press them to confront the lies of the Chinese government with the truth. We must also give praise when a world leader does speak the truth. We commend and support U.S. Ambassador Locke's recent actions and the UN Human Rights High Commissioner's recent strong statement and welcome them as a big step forward. We must press the Chinese people to end their silence on Tibet. We should make special effort to reach out to them, to confront them with the truth, to appeal to their conscience, and to let them realize that the suffering of the Tibetan people is the suffering of the Chinese people, and that the same government that brings such misery to the Tibetan people is the same government that is jailing their best citizens, robbing the land from peasants, and controlling their right to speak and think freely. We must make Chinese government feel the heat of the fires of the martyrdom from all directions. My dear brothers and sisters, we promise with all our heart, all our physical being and spirit, that we will commit ourselves to this campaign of truth. With our combined help, the world will learn the truth. The world will know the truth. The world will speak the truth. And in the end, the truth will set us free. Thank you, dear brothers and sisters.
Thank you, Professor Yang Jie-li, for this message on behalf of the Chinese participants. Mr. Crime, if you'll bear with me, I'll just take a few more minutes to wrap up. I've been very unruly. There's been a few questions posed to me during this conference and by several participants, and I feel I must address them as it is difficult to speak to a gathering of this nature, and I certainly don't want to send these individuals who pose these questions with their questions unanswered. One question was, Tibetans inside Tibet, with a few exceptions, have called for Rawang. So the question was, what does Rawang mean? Rawang means personal or collective freedom. The meaning of independence is Rangzen, which means independence, sovereignty. To opt to give one's life is a critical decision that reflects a profound process of introspection and strength of conviction. Every word, written and oral testimony left by the self-immolators has been carefully weighed by these individuals, by these self-immolators, who were fully cognizant of their meaning and implication. Tibetans inside Tibet know the difference in meaning between the word Rawang and Rangzen. Their command of the Tibetan language is equal, if not greater, than the Tibetan community in exile. With a few exceptions, all self-immolators have clearly called for Rawang. The other question that was posed to me is the call for His Holiness the Dalai Lama's return to Tibet. Tibetans inside Tibet have been very closely following all the developments over the past year, including the separation of political and religious leadership that took place last year. When they call for His Holiness's return to Tibet, they do so being fully aware of his role as our spiritual, most revered leader. His Holiness, since this important development, has incessantly been stating wherever he travels, like he did yesterday, that since the devolution of political authority took place, he is the religious leader of the Tibetan people, and Sikyong Lobsang Sangay is the political leader. So we have to be very cautious and refrain from dissecting and extrapolating from their call for freedom and the return of His Holiness the Dalai Lama. They are calling for freedom and the return of His Holiness. That is the message. Extrapolating leads to confusion and unnecessary divisions. The Tibetan movement is led by Tibetans inside Tibet. Whatever aspirations they express, we must honor and echo them faithfully in our global efforts for their realization. As the current administration moves forward, I want to reiterate our determination to realize the aspirations of Tibetans inside Tibet And this we pledge with passion, vision, the courage to take bold actions and explore new ideas. The Tibetan people have placed great hope in us at this critical time. It is both a privilege and a great responsibility. To shoulder this responsibility well, we need first and foremost your support and unity. Thank you.
May I now request Mr. Dilip Mehta, who is our former Secretary of the Government of India, and also was also ambassador to the few countries, who is the chief guest to this function to address.
I thank Kalon Deki Choyang for inviting me to speak here today. I would like to make a clarification. While I was a secretary in the Ministry of External Affairs, the Foreign Office in Delhi, I wasn't actually the Foreign Secretary. He is the primus inter pares among 4 secretaries who work together. But I'm delighted that you did call me the former Foreign Secretary. It's very difficult to say anything more appropriate than what the gentleman who represented the Chinese community said. I feel humbled by all that he said, and he rightly deserved the standing ovation he got. I feel privileged to be speaking here to all of you who have done so much individually and collectively to keep the hopes and aspirations of the Tibetan people alive. That you have done so voluntarily is tribute that is deeply appreciated by all Tibetans and those of us who are concerned at developments in Tibet. Here today are representatives from more than 40 countries around the world, which is a reflection of the fact that Tibet is no longer a local affair of China, but a global concern. I am not an expert on Tibet, merely a well-wisher, and have tried to keep myself abreast of developments as they take place. In a sense, I'm also an interloper today, because Mr. Arun Shourie, parliamentarian and author of several books, was to have addressed you, but could not be here because of his wife's illness. During the last few days, workshops have been held, which I am sure discussed and debated various issues affecting Tibet, human rights, the environment, rivers, etc. And perhaps also a strategy for resolving the complex Tibetan problem that has now existed for several decades. It will be interesting to know of your conclusions. What I will be saying will be nothing new or original, as all of you are far more knowledgeable about Tibet. Nor shall I go into too many details, but will try and convey my personal impressions. Over the last 6 decades, successive Chinese governments have tried to systematically obliterate Tibet's identity and culture, largely because their efforts to assimilate Tibetans into the mainstream of China have failed. Chinese methods have been brutal and ruthless, but have not succeeded in breaking the spirit of the Tibetan people, nor their determination to preserve their unique culture, religion, and civilization. The tragic and horrific self-immolations, more than 60, I understand, is a reflection of this determination. China today is an immensely powerful country, both in military and economic terms, which perhaps explains why no country is willing to openly support the Tibetan cause. However, China itself is undergoing fundamental changes. There is a new generation of outward-looking people who are aware of the world events and opinions. I am sure they do not wish their country to be regarded as a pariah nation as it achieves superpower status. Rather, they would wish their country to be admired, perhaps envied, for its undoubted achievements. Thousands of Chinese students are now studying abroad in the United States, Europe, Australia, and many other countries. Chinese commerce and industry is spread throughout the world. Chinese, be they tourists or professionals, travel the world. Surely they can all not be immune to global public opinion on the tragic happenings in Tibet. The internet has opened a whole new world of information about the Chinese themselves and the rest of the world. As The Economist magazine said in one of its recent issues, the Communist Party can no longer bottle up dissent. Ordinary people are protesting in public and writing about previously taboo subjects. Events that once remained local are now being debated nationwide. Unquote. Social and civil unrest in China is on the rise. The gap between the rich and the poor is widening. Discontent among China's many minorities is on the increase and getting more explosive. None of these developments can be ignored or suppressed. China's new leadership under Xi Jinping will have to address these issues and willy-nilly make concessions lest matters get out of control and perhaps even threaten the integrity of the country. While the Tibetan administration, under the guidance of Sikyong Dr Lobsang Sangay, will no doubt resume the suspended dialogue with the Chinese authorities, it is hoped that Xi Jinping will see the reality of the changing world and not mindlessly carry the baggage of the past. There must be a new beginning. The opportunity must be seized. From the Tibetan point of view, I see no alternative to His Holiness's middle way approach. It is transparent, pragmatic, realistic, as it does not in any way threaten or dilute China's sovereignty and territorial integrity. Further, I see no alternative to His Holiness's nonviolent approach, as militancy and confrontation will only invite greater Chinese brutality and repression. It is here that the Tibetan Support Groups can play a meaningful role to influence public opinion at every level and in all walks of life on the reasonableness of His Holiness's approach to resolving the seemingly intractable Tibetan problem. It is through the pressure that public opinion exerts that governments will take cognizance of the ongoing tragedy in Tibet, not merely in words, but also in actions. Let me now say a few words on India's Tibet policy in the context of the sensitive relations between India and China. While there have been improvements in certain areas, such as trade and commerce, joint ventures, culture and education, I understand even limited joint military exercises, several underlying problems continue to bedevil bilateral relations. These include the unresolved boundary dispute, the status of Arunachal Pradesh, China's ambivalent position on Jammu and Kashmir, the progressive Chinese encirclement of India, both on land and sea, among several other issues. Without doubt, the most disturbing and dangerous has been the ongoing and extensive militarization and nuclearization of the Tibetan Plateau, which directly threatens India's geostrategic interests. The Indo-Tibet border has therefore become a source of great concern. The time has come for a rethink of India's Tibet policy, subtly nuanced without being provocative. I feel the government of India should be less diffident about pronouncing on matters concerning Tibet, especially where they impact adversely on India. Also, the government of India should work with other countries where there are shared interests. I would strongly urge my government to endorse His Holiness's middle way approach. This would stabilize the situation in Tibet and would at the same time be in India's own interest. Just a word about a very amazing lecture, a historic lecture I heard a few days ago in Delhi. It was the Jovial Nehru Memorial Lecture given by the outstanding Burmese leader Aung San Suu Kyi. And in that lecture, which I hope all of you can access on Google or wherever else, she said, apart from a great many other remarkable things, that often during her trip in India, which is, I think, still ongoing, she's often asked what are her expectations and disappointments from India. And with the forthrightness of only what a brave person can say in India to an Indian audience, was that her expectations were that in the Indian governments, successive Indian governments, would support the democratic movement in Tibet. She said that India, being the largest democracy in the world, she had hoped that India would support Burma's struggling democratic movement, and her disappointment was that India, for whatever reasons, decided to side with the military regime that was repressive and cruel. Only a woman of her stature and greatness could speak in such a manner. And at the end of her speech, which was one of the most remarkable speeches I've had the honor of hearing, she received a standing ovation. And present in the audience was the Vice President of India, Hamid Ansari, Sonia Gandhi, and various other people. My wife, of course, I must add, on a personal note, had been in school in Delhi with her, and that added a personal dimension to that remarkable afternoon when we heard her speak. And therefore, I feel subsequent governments of India, as you had very rightly pointed out, must absolutely rethink and publicly their policy towards Tibet, what's happening in Tibet. And for this, again, I agree with you, parliamentarians and all other opinion makers, journalists, academics, bureaucrats, teachers, college-going students, all of them must be interacted with, because everybody knows somebody, and that's how public opinion finally forces governments to take appropriate action. Thank you very much.
Honorable Ambassador Dilip Mehta, former Secretary in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, Government of India, dear Kalundiki Choyang, guests, ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of the Department of Information and International Relations and the organizing committee of this special meeting, I have the pleasure of extending the vote of thanks. First of all, I would like to thank His Holiness the Dalai Lama for his kind visit to our meeting and blessing us with his profound guidance. I would like to thank the delegates for coming to this meeting in Dharamsala and for your active participation and continued commitment to support the just cause of Tibet. And especially I would like to thank the representatives of officers of Tibet who have been especially requested to be present in this meeting. Our deepest appreciation goes to the International Core Group for Tibetan Cause, led by Dr. N.K. Trika, for hosting this meeting. Our gratitude also goes to Mr. Rinjin Kato Krime for his contribution to the meeting and indeed for hosting this concluding ceremony. Let me thank Ambassador Dilip Mehta, our chief guest, for the closing ceremony. It's utterly true, and I can vouchsafe that he has indeed taken time out from his busy schedule to accommodate our request to be with us now and for his inspirational speech. I wish to extend our gratitude to Sikyong Dr Lobsang Sangay for the keynote address and for his guidance and valued support throughout the process of organizing this meeting. I would like to thank Mr. Penpat Sering, Speaker of Tibetan Parliament in Exile, for his presentation on Tibetan democracy. I would like to also thank dear Kalun Diki Choyang for her active guidance and support for the meeting and for her welcome address and of course, the concluding address just now. Thank you, Mr. Shri Indresh Kumar, for his address. I would also like to thank Special Representative Kelsang Gyaltsen, Representative Dawat Sering, Mr. Lobsang Chodang, Mr. Tenzin Norbu, Mr. Jingmi for their presentations. Thank you also to Mr. Todd Stein, Mr. Vincent Martin, Mr. Paul Borg, Gundar Kulon, Yang Jianli, Han Lian Chao, Mingma Wright, Nadine Roman for their presentation and workshops. Please thank the facilitators and rapporteurs. They are Ms. Alison Reynolds, Mandy McGowan, Mr. Tenzin Jingme, Mr. Jingme Nobu, Ms. Kalden Somo, Mr. Kelsang Dorji, Ms. Rebecca Novik, Ms. Kate Wozno, Ms. Ayona Liddell, Mr. Ukien Wangchuk, Mr. Hannah Scott, Mr. Tenzin Jigdel. I would like to thank my colleagues in the drafting committee. Mr. Thupten Sambel, Ms. Carol Samtup, Ms. Alison Reynolds, Mr. Paul Borg have worked very hard. I would also like to thank the management and staff of hotels at Nadi village for their hospitality and cooperation. I would like to also thank Tibetan Medical and Astrological Institute, Dharamsala, for hosting the dinner on the first day of the meeting. Please extend a huge thank you to TCV Dharamsala Mr. Punzon Namgye, the village director, and his staff have not only redone the venue of the meeting for us, but have also made us feel genuinely at home. They have left the entire TCV facilities at our disposal to make this meeting a success. The catering team from VTC Selekui deserves a round of applause for the delicious food that we have enjoyed during the meeting. I would like to thank all the staff members of Department of Information and International Relations and other departments who have worked around the clock. Without their hard work, this meeting would not have been run so smoothly and successfully. Finally, I must make a personal mention of Mrs. Sonam Sangmo, Liaison Officer of the TSG and Chief Organizer of the meeting. Hear me out. We had to withhold her imminent transfer because of this meeting, and needless to say, she has done a marvelous job. Before I conclude, I have a small presentation ceremony. I would like to request Madam Diki Choyang to kindly do me the honor of giving Ambassador Dilip Mehta a memento on behalf of all of us. Thank you. I would like to request Ambassador Mehta to kindly do the honor of handing over the next souvenir to Dr. Trika, convener of the meeting. Last but not the least, as we always say, but we really and utterly mean it. I would like to request our secretary, Mr. Tashi, who has been behind the scene quietly and silently working throughout the entire conference, to do me the honor of handing over the next souvenir to Alison Renault. Executive Director, International Tibet Network, who has put the major work in this special meeting. It's befitting that two hard-working people should be together on the stage. In keeping with the tradition of Tibet Support Group conferences and special meetings, in token of saying thank you to all the delegates, I would like to request our representatives of officers of Tibet to hand over the traditional Tibetan white scarves to all the delegates and say thank you and Tukjiche.